Monday. Welcome to Patch and Play. My name is Jimmy, aka Perceptes. This is a stream that I do about once a week and have been for a few months. That's all about modular synthesis. And this is a time that we spend about an hour, 2 hours together working on a modular synth patch from scratch without anything in particular planned in advance. And we chat about modular hardware music production, and we just see where the wind takes us. I usually do these on Mondays at 1 o'clock Pacific time, but once in a while I like to have one on the weekend at a different time so that people who are not able to make it on that time slot on Monday can get a chance to come. So that's today, but of course doing it at a different time means that the regulars may not realize that it's changed, so I don't know what the audience will be like today. But perhaps we'll have some new and different people. I usually like to start off by kind of giving some context for what this is all about for anyone that may have clicked on the live stream or is watching the video after the fact and has not seen modular synthesis before. Modular is a type of electronic music production where instead of buying a single synthesizer with like a keyboard and some sort of built-in controls, you construct a custom instrument out of smaller building blocks. So you buy a case, which is one of these big sort of suitcase looking things, and then you fill it with modules that are all of these little individual boxes. And each one of them performs generally sort of one specific function that doesn't do a lot by itself, but you can use patch cables, which are these little 3.5 millimeter audio cables, to plug connections in between the jacks on these different modules, and that's how they communicate with each other. So by patching a bunch of stuff in, you create a signal flow of audio and control signals, and you can sort of build your own instrument. So each time you build something with it, it's a little bit different, and you never quite know what you're going to get, and as soon as you unpatch everything, it's kind of hard to recreate exactly what you had. So it's kind of got this ephemeral quality where things are very like in the moment, and that's one of the things that I like about it. So as for today's topic, I recently saw a video on the OXI Instruments channel. They're the company that makes this sequencer, the OXI One, and they had a sort of focus on a performance technique where you set like a sort of a division of steps. Usually on a step sequencer you have 16 steps, which is like 16th notes of a single measure in the 4/4 time signature. But in that video they use modulation that is fewer than 16 steps, so that when it gets to the end of that sort of pattern it repeats. But if you're set against a piece of music that's in 4/4, presumably where the overall pattern has 16 steps, then each time the modulation repeats, it kind of starts from a different point because it's not looping at the same rate. And then it also has the ability to sort of reset the pattern after a certain number of beats. So for example, setting 14 steps and then having it reset after a full bar means that it'll go do 14 steps here, and then it'll do 2 steps again, and then it'll reset and go back to 1. So it'll be 14, 2, 14, 2. So you can sort of use different combinations of that to get a sort of offbeat modulation pattern that does repeat in a actually fairly predictable way, to try to get kind of a good combination between, I guess, predictability and sort of organic qualities. So I thought that would be something that would be interesting to try out. I think I've done stuff like that before, but not that exact approach. So I might give that a try. I should also mention a couple of things that I changed with my streaming setup. I don't know how well it's going to go today. One is I redid a bunch of my scenes in OBS, which is the software that does the broadcasting, to try to manage this a little bit better. And of course it all worked when I was testing it, but now, I guess it is actually working now. Okay, good. So just a second ago I was trying this, and the my little controller here for switching the view wasn't working, but I see now that it is. So I can zoom in on the left case, on the right case, on the OXI One, on my little case, the 4MS pod, and then the full overhead shot. Okay, cool. So that's working. The other thing that I've changed this time is I'm doing the audio mixing a little bit differently. because there's been some trouble in the past with being able to hear my voice over the music and making sure that it's kind of like a good balance between the two so that neither one is too loud and I'm not drowning out the music and the music's not drowning me out. So the way I have it set up now is that when there's music playing and I'm not speaking, you should hear the music at full volume. And then if I speak while the music is playing, the volume of the music should automatically lower. But I can't necessarily hear exactly what the audience is hearing. So I'll need your feedback about whether or not the volume is getting too quiet or not, whether the music is getting too quiet or not quiet enough when I speak. And I may need to sort of tweak the settings as we go to find the right balance. So with that preamble out of the way, I guess I will get started and try to come up with a patch. If anyone is able to stop by in the live chat, please say hello so I know that people are here. And if you have questions or anything particularly that you want to see, please do let me know, because I'm happy to gear what I'm doing towards what other people are interested in. And so you're not just watching over my shoulder without any interaction for the whole time. Okay, so I think maybe we'll do kind of like a few parts, maybe like a sort of a 4-part thing. That's something that I like to do, having kind of like a bass, a pad, and then 2 lead lines, maybe like an arpeggiator and sort of 1 lead synth instrument. I might give that a shot. So I just need to decide which modules I want to be which voices. Oh, hey, Scott. Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. So what are we going to do today? I think maybe in terms of the chord voice, I think the only ones that I have that can produce chords are Mutable Instruments Plates and Jasmine and Olive Tree's Doppler, which maybe would be the more interesting one to use. So let me go into the chord mode on Doppler, and let's just do some sort of preliminary patching. So we're going to use 4 voices. I'm just going to set the maximum volume for all of them. Question from Scott, can you include the Icarius? I'm considering buying one. Yeah, absolutely. We'll use that to filter one of the voices for sure. So I like to use Castor and Pollux as a bass voice, so I think maybe I will resist the urge and use something else. Maybe we'll use Manus as a bass line instead. So let me plug in the output of Manus Ateritas into the first channel of the mixer. That's going to be our bass. And then we're going to have a pad from Doppler in our second channel. And then for the third channel, which I guess will be an arpeggio, thinking maybe rings would be nice. Thinking of using like a really plucky sound on rings to keep it kind of minimal. So I'm going to patch the odd and even outputs of rings into the third channel of my mixer. And then for the fourth voice, maybe we'll do another sort of plucky one, or no, maybe we want a little bit more variety. So I think we'll use Ona, and I'm going to send it through the natural gate. So let me grab, I'm just going to start with the sawtooth. Let me get a shorter cable. You might want to change which waveform we're using, but I'm going to start with the sawtooth, send that into the input of natural gate, and the output into our fourth channel. And then I need to patch the output of the mixer into the output of the case. Let's turn the volume up, and let's actually listen to some sound and see Okay, I'm gonna turn Manus on all the way so that it's constantly droning. And tell me how that sounds. How is the volume of the audio versus my voice? Is one much louder than the other, and does it sound like the volume of the music goes down when I speak? To me, it sounds very loud still, so maybe I'll turn it down a little bit. I can't really tell if it's going down. I think it is, but maybe not enough. We'll have to see once we get a little bit more music going. Okay, so I should actually, before we do this, I should actually tune these oscillators. So let's take one of the outputs into the oscilloscope, into the tuner. We'll do the key of E today. So there's an E. Okay. Oscillators may be 10 to 20% too loud, but we can still hear your voice, and it is ducking the volume slightly, maybe a little bit more ducking. Okay, I'm gonna wait until I have more instruments going to adjust, because I think just one like very brassy kind of sound like that may not be the best representation of how it's all going to sound when it's mixed, so I may need to adjust again. Okay, so that's our first voice, and what did I patch for our second voice? I've already forgotten. The second one is Doppler, so we need to give this one a trigger. Let me just send it kind of a random trigger here. We need a body sound for this. I totally forgot. So maybe I will use, I guess we could use Castor and Pollux as just the body voice. Because Doppler needs an audio input into its body for it to make any noticeable noise. There you go. Okay, and then let's tune Castor and Pollux down to an E. Okay. That seems good. I may have to retune once we get the sequencer plugged in. Yeah, I think this needs to be higher. So I'm going to unplug this for a minute. We may need to do some retuning once I get the CV connections plugged into the volt per octave. Let's actually do that first, because I think otherwise we're going to have to redo things. So I'm going to take the first 4 CV outputs of the OXI One and use those for our instruments here. So the first one is going to be Manus, which is our bass. The second one is going to be Castor and Pollux, which is our chord. The third one is going to be Rings, which is our arpeggio. And the fourth one is going to be Ona, which will be our lead. Okay. And then over on the OXI One, let's set the CV signals for the first 4 channels to be the first 4 sequencers. And we're going to put each sequencer in minor with E2 as the root. I think there's some way to, let me see if I can figure it out. There's some way to make the project, scale master sequence, sequence 1. So what I've just done is something I just recently learned, where on the OXI One, let me switch to the screen. If you press Shift and then the perf button to go to your project settings, one of the settings is scale master sequence. And this allows you to select one of the 8 sequencers or off. And if you pick a sequencer, then whatever scale and root note that sequencer is set to will apply to all 8 scales, or sorry, all 8 sequencers. So if you want everything to be kind of in tune with each other, then you don't have to set each sequencer's scale and root note individually. It's a really nice little shortcut that I just learned about recently. I never noticed the project page before, even though it's a pretty prominent label. Okay, so let's give an E2 to that first pitch, and so we should be hearing. Sure enough, there's our E2. Yeah. No. There we go. So I need to go down to E1, I guess. There's E1. And then we'll go to our second voice. We'll play an E2 on that. And that is, yes, that's the Doppler sound. So let's get the trigger back into that and see if we can tune that. Okay, so this one we probably want a little higher. So I'm actually going to tune it to maybe E3. Okay. Let's unplug that guy. Okay, so then now the second oscillator is tuned. Our third oscillator is rings. So let's give that an E2 to start with and give it some triggers. Hey, Russ. Good to see you. I think I've only ever seen you in the comments after the fact. I'm glad you were able to make it live to one of the streams. Autoduck works okay. All right, good. Yeah, we'll definitely tweak it as we get going. Okay, and then the fourth oscillator to tune was ONA. So let's go to our fourth oscillator. Let's give this maybe also an E3. And let's play that. And open the gate. That's pretty close. Okay, so I think everything should be in tune now. Great. Very good. We're set to go. Let's plug our stereo signal back into the output. And let's come up with a sequence. So I guess we're going to need triggers also. So I guess I should patch those up. Kind of a lot of patching to do right at the beginning here, but it should get more interesting once we've got our basics set up. So the first trigger is going to go into our bass, Manus Ateritas. Our second trigger is going to go into, I guess I can use a shorter cable here. Second trigger is going to be the trigger of Doppler. Third trigger is the strum input of rings. And fourth trigger is the hit on natural gate. And that should be our 4 voices. So let's maybe start with a bass line. So we're going to go back to our first sequence. Oh, I realize I've been looking at the OXI One this whole time. I'm so sorry. I sometimes forget to change the camera angle, but it's actually appropriate here. This is what we want. So let's just do just kind of make something up as I go here. Oh, and I need to set the gate configuration. So now that the gate signal for each of the 4 sequencers goes out the 4 gate jacks on the OXI pipe. And now we should get a sound. Okay. So we hear very little there. And that's because I have the envelope on Manus set to the shortest possible time. So what we're going to do is increase that until we like what we hear. Had it in the liquid modes, which is really intended kind of more for a drum because it has that percussive attack on the beginning. Actually doesn't sound bad. I'm not sure I like the sequence. Okay, so we're going to program a little bit more. Maybe do a couple of pages worth to start. I'm just kind of making up something. I think coming up with a interesting sequence, like on the fly while people are watching, is probably the most impossible thing to do. Sure, why not? Okay, and so for our second sequence, I'm going to slow it down so the chords don't change very often. Let's just do... doesn't seem to trigger. There we go. Okay, so what I just did there, I need this first channel. So when you have the mod turned all the way counterclockwise on Doppler, it's a chord mode. So you're sending it a fixed pitch, but it's using delay lines to create pitch-shifted copies of the input signal, and the amount control will determine which chord is played. So you can see here as I turn it, it's changing the quality of the chord. That doesn't sound too bad. And you can turn the internal low pass gate on and off. I have it on right now, so you get a little bit of that sort of filter drop, in addition to the amplitude decay over the length of the note. I think it sounds a little bit better. This is definitely too fast though, so what I'm going to do is, over on the OXI One, I'm going to go into the, which menu is it? I think it's the track menu. Yeah, so if I press track, I can change the division. Interesting. So even the longest decay on Doppler, the note doesn't actually last that long. I wonder if you can make it longer by giving it CV. So you have this decay knob, but it just takes a trigger as input. It's not like an envelope, like a gate, where you get to control exactly how long the note stays, because it's really intended for drums. So if I plug something into the decay, so even with a control voltage, like I'm adding an additional 5 volts into the decay, it's not really lasting much longer. Okay, well maybe just turning off the low pass gate is the right choice here, because that makes the note ring out a little bit longer. We may find that we want to use a different voice here, but I think that's maybe sounds okay. Turning the low pass filter down on Manus, maybe giving it a little bit of bash, which applies its envelope to those parameters: low pass filter, smash, and profundity, which give it a little bit more interest on the attack. I think for that Doppler voice, we really need some effects. So maybe I will try and decide what I want to do for effects today. I think Dismodus will be better for a pad than my Erica synths sounds. So let's plug in. Let's see if these cables should be long enough, or is that too long? That's too long. I'm going to plug in the second stereo send return from my mixer. I usually use the first one for delay and the second one for reverb. So we're going to take the stereo output of the B send and go into Desmodus Versio, which we'll use for reverb. And then the output of the effect goes into the stereo return on Zermixa. And let's listen to that track again, and let's turn up the sound. Okay, yeah. Having some reverb on it, I think, goes a long way. And since we're using it as a send effect, I've turned the blend all the way to the right, so Desmodus is not outputting any of the dry signal, because we're doing the blend between dry and wet in the mixer itself. Maybe make the reverb a little brighter. So having a little reverb on this kind of has the effect of making the tail of the chord last longer, which I think sounds better. Before we go further, let me maybe get a drum track set up so we can get at least like a kick drum to kind of anchor us rhythmically. So I'm going to use track 8, or sorry, sequencer 8 on the OXI One, and I'm going to put it into, oh, it's already in multi-track mode. And then in my CV gate settings, I'm going to set the 5th gate output of the OXI pipe to be the first track of that sequencer. So if I just put a 4 on the floor here, did I say that right? 4 on the floor. And then we can take a gate out of the 5th gate output into Crater. I can use a shorter cable. Try to preserve my cable length wherever possible. 5th output into the trigger of Crater. And then we'll send the output of that into the 5th channel of our mixer. And let's see if we get our kick drum. Looks like we've got a delay set up on there, which I do not want. Let me zero out all the effects from whatever I was using the mixer for previously. Okay, cool. And that's a pretty decent drum sound already. Actually want it really snappy and really kind of low. Just want a vague sense of the rhythm without the drums being really kind of in your face. Okay, I think maybe we need so the sequence doesn't get annoying. I think we may need, I'm not sure if I really like this. I don't know. I need to figure out a way to come up with sequences on stream that are like nice to listen to, that aren't annoying. Because I honestly think this is the hardest part of like trying to do a patch live in front of people, is that finding a sequence that is like good is quite time consuming. Like you have to try a lot of different things, I find. And so I don't want to just like sit here like trying a zillion sequences for 2 hours, because I don't think that's very interesting to watch, and you won't really learn much. But I don't know, maybe seeing someone stumble through this kind of thing is actually helpful to the process. But maybe what I'll do is I'm going to set the let's see, how am I going to do this? So another thing that OXI One can do is it can like automatically harmonize adjacent sequencers. So maybe what I'm going to do is, let's go back to the OXI One. I'm going to go back to the project settings and turn off that scale master sequence thing. And I'm going to set the chords. Yeah, I'm going to use the chords as kind of like the base of what I think everything should be harmonized to. Oh, this actually won't work though, because we're kind of generating chords with Doppler by using its own chord mode to sort of add additional pitches. But from the OXI One's perspective, only the root note is programmed. So it doesn't actually know what the other notes in the chord are. And I'm not sequencing the chord, it's playing the same chord quality for every note right now. So maybe this won't work. I think we'll go back to what we were doing before. So we're going to use, again, scale 1 as the master sequencer. So they're all in minor. Maybe we'll just do the quick and dirty thing, which is to Actually, I kind of wonder about just like doing a single note sort of rhythmic pattern. So maybe we'll go into the gen mode. And so this mode is like forgetting the word for it, a Euclidean rhythm generator. It's generally kind of designed for drums, but it can work for notes also. And the way it works is that you give it a total number of steps in your sequence. So for example, let's set it to 64 steps, and it automatically, I set the length of the sequence to 64 steps, and so the Euclidean sequence length automatically inherits that 64 steps. And then you set the number of pulses, which is like how many notes you want to be laid out across those 64 steps. And what it does is it evenly divides them across the space, essentially. So you can see here that when I have given it a total of 64 steps and a total of 32 pulses, that's an even division of 2. So every 2 steps on the sequencer gets a trigger, and all of the pages will look the same. So that's not so interesting, but what does get interesting is when you give a number of triggers that is not evenly divisible by the total number of steps. So now I've selected 34, which can't be evenly split across 64 steps. And so the result is that you get some triggers that are slightly kind of syncopated from the other ones. And this can be kind of an interesting way to get rhythms. Well, let's just hear what this sounds like. And I'm going to... So you can hear it's like almost straight eighth notes, but there's a few notes in there that get kind of added in a syncopation. So let's add a few more pulses. Let's go up to maybe 40. Maybe we'll try using the harmonizer mode. I'm just curious what will happen. I think it'll just change the pitch, basically. If I set the scale of the first sequence, if I turn the scale control all the way to the left, it goes past major, it goes past chromatic, and it goes to harmonizer. And then I can set which sequence it harmonizes with, and I guess it doesn't actually work with a single note sequence. Let's see. Interesting. So this isn't going to work. I guess the harmonization feature only works if you have a sequencer that is polyphonic. So with a mono sequence, it can't harmonize. Okay, that's news to me. I've never tried that before. When I changed that first sequence, it changed all the other ones because I had it set as the primary sequence for all of the other ones. So let's take a look at what did I do for that sequence. I did the first, the third, the fifth, and the second. So what we can do is change the notes there. So let's go back to our first sequence, and we're just going to have the bass part play the same note as the root of the chord. So on our second page, I'm actually not sure how this works. I think if I just want to move all of the notes up a step, I'm not actually sure how that works. I think if I press shift and the little up button, it nudges all the notes up by one. So what was it again? 1, 3, 5, 2. So on our second page, we want to go move all the root notes to the third degree of the scale. That's the third row from the bottom. On the fourth page, we're going to go up to the fifth. And on the fourth page, we're going to go down to the second. And it seems like that's actually affecting the entire scale. Not just, oh, that's unfortunate. I just want to do one page at a time. Maybe it's not possible. The other thing I could try is like think I can copy all of these steps by holding the copy button. And then if I hold the second pad and press, oh no, that's not the one I want. I want the third of the scale. And if I press paste, yeah, that'll work. So it's a little cumbersome, but essentially I'll do it again on this one. So on the third page, if I hold the copy button and then tap all of the steps that are currently lit, then I hold the step that I want it to copy to, which is the 5th, and press paste. Then it pastes that entire sequence of steps across. And because it's a monophonic sequencer, it deselects the previous steps. So maybe there's a quicker way to do that if I just want to sort of transpose all of the pitches on a particular page. But I think I've done this right now. 1, 3, 5, 2. 1, 3, 5, 2. So I think yeah, okay. So there we go. Now we've got the bass part playing the same root note as the note that's being sent to Doppler to generate those chords. And I don't think we want any effects on the bass per se, but I think it would be nice to maybe vary the envelope a little bit. So we could time synchronize this, but I don't think it's that important. So maybe what I will do is I will send an LFO from Oct, maybe kind of like a medium length LFO. I'm going to send it through. Oh, let me make sure I'm looking at the right screen. I'm going to send it through an attenuator. And then from the attenuator output into the envelope CV jack on Manus, which will vary the decay time of its pitches. And let's get that playing again. So that's with an unattenuated LFO. Let me bring it down to like 25% of its full strength. And it's bipolar, so it will move longer and shorter to what I have the knob set to. I think that's actually too much. I want it very, very slight, so I'm going to attenuate it even more. Now that we have a little bit more music going, also let me know how it sounds volume-wise, whether you can hear my voice clearly and the ducking is appropriate, or the music needs to be ducked more in comparison to my voice. Yeah, that's okay. I think that sounds not bad. Turn the cutoff of the built-in low-pass filter on Manus all the way down to kind of darken that a little bit. It's got some degree of envelope applied to the low-pass filter, so we'll get a little bit of brighter attack, but I want it to be kind of more subdued. Yeah, that doesn't sound too bad. All right, should we get an arpeggio going on rings? I think we'll want to maybe expand the sequence also. That might be a good idea, because I think even those 4 notes are kind of repetitive. So let's go back to the OXI and do this. Bass is maybe a bit loud. Okay, I can turn down the bass a little bit. Let's extend the sequence to 128 steps. And I'm curious. Okay, so when I have the generator, the Euclidean generator set to 64 steps, so it actually looks like it did not inherit that change there. Or does it only go up to 64? That's interesting. Huh. So you can't do a Euclidean sequence that's more than that? That's news to me. That's so interesting. So you can't do a 128 step Euclidean sequence. I did not realize that. Well, I think what we can do actually, though, is I think we can copy the pages. I think if we turn we don't even really need to turn it off. Length 2, what does this do? I should probably read the manual on this. I don't use this feature too often. Okay. So it has two pulse generators that you can sort of overlay on top of each other, but it looks like the whole length of the sequence can't be longer than 64 steps. So if I want a sequence that's 128 steps, I guess I have to do it myself, essentially. So what we could do, though, is just copy the pages. So if I hold the copy button and I press 1, I can copy that to page 5, paste part 1 to part 5, and then similarly, I'm going to copy the second page, paste it to the 6th page, copy the 3rd page, paste it to the 7th page, copy the 4th page, and paste it to the 8th page. So now I think, oh, it didn't actually hear my 128. Maybe that was the problem. Oh yeah, okay. I see. So as soon as I use the gen feature, no matter what I've set the pattern length to beyond 64 steps, it resets it to 64 because that's all gen is able to do. Good to know. Okay, so let's put it back to 128 again. And it looks like I actually lost my first 4 pages now because I messed with the gen settings again. Interesting. Okay, I got to do that same process, but the other way around. So I'm going to copy page 5, paste it to page 1. Copy 6, paste it to 2, copy 7, paste it to 3, copy 8, paste it to 4. Okay, now we should have each page basically the same. Okay, cool. So let's do 32 step sequence for the chords, but the division of each of these cells is slower. Each one is a quarter note, I think. Yep. So 2 pages worth of this second sequence will be the same as 128 steps of our base pattern. So let's pick a different set of chords. Maybe do 5, 4, 6, 7 on the second page. No, I didn't like 2 going to 5. I think 2 needs to go to 6. So we'll do 6, 4, 6, 7. Let's try that. Don't love that either. Maybe 6, 4, 2, 3. Again, I'm just kind of trying things, hoping to find something that's like listenable without spending too much time on this. I don't know how interesting this is to watch. Okay, and then we need to do a bass pattern that matches these notes. So I did 6, 4, 2, 3. So we're going to go back to our bass sequence. And we're going to copy these notes. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to paste them onto the 6th of the scale. Oh, interesting. Yeah, this one got moved. So it was previously... Oops. I've already forgotten what this was. 6, 4, 2, 3. So this page, these should be moved to the 4th degree of the scale. Two, 3. And on this second to last page, I've already forgotten what it was. I think it's 2. Yeah, 2. And then the last bass note should be... Oh, interesting, yeah. I don't know why these got moved. Should be 3. I think that's correct. So I just need to move these notes. Okay, let's see how this sounds. Okay, I think that's probably fine just to like mess around for today. Another thing I want to do on the bass part is I'm going to use the random performance feature. So if you press the little dice button, you get the random perform page, and this will allow you to vary certain aspects of the sound sort of probabilistically. So you have like a percentage of a chance that something will happen. So for example, maybe we'll give it each trigger of the bass will have a 10% chance to go up an octave. And then maybe even give like a 10% chance of like a repeated note. Might sound okay. Let's just listen. Yeah, that's not too bad. I'm wondering also if maybe using the velocity control for this sequence would be more interesting than using the LFO, which is what we had been doing. Why don't we try doing that? So if I take the bass part, let's go to the CV settings. I'm going to set the 5th CV output to be the velocity of the first sequencer. And so I will then plug, let's see, can I get a shorter cable for this? I think I can. The 5th CV output from the OXI One will go into the envelope. And so now if we go back to that random perform page, and let me just turn the envelope way down. Doesn't sound good. I think probably the default velocity is much higher than I want it to be. So what I can do is I press the velocity button. Yeah, you can see kind of the default level. So I'm going to turn the default velocity for the whole track down to 1. And then I'll use the, I'm just changing, it's off screen, but I'm just changing the sort of default velocity value on Manus. And so now if I, in the random perform page, increase the velocity amount, so now I've increased the randomness of the velocity values by 20%. So each trigger has a 20% chance to have a different velocity. I'm actually not sure if the percentage refers to how likely the trigger is to have a different velocity or how much the velocity change for a trigger should be. I'm not sure the manual even tells you. There should be some degree of variance there. But anyway, so we're using the velocity track in the sequencer to control the length of the envelope on the bass. Let's give the chords a little bit more reverb too. Okay, that's probably close enough. Should we add a third track? Maybe an arpeggio. I don't think I've actually ever used the arpeggiator on OXI One. Because usually if I want to do an arpeggio, it's easier to just use something in rack. Like my Bard Quartet in my left case, this quantizer has a arpeggiato mode, so you program in a scale, and every time you send it a trigger, it plays the next note in the scale. So that works well. Oh, I just realized the power of my camera is not plugged in. I better plug that in before we run out of power. Yeah, so let's try it though. So on the third sequence, if I press this, move the camera a bit. If I press the ARP button, interesting. So what happens if I just, this is a polyphonic track, which obviously we can't do polyphony with any of the modules that I'm using, and certainly not rings. Like, it has its own built-in pseudo polyphony because like notes can kind of ring out over each other, but it's not actually playing multiple notes at a time. But let's see, what were the degrees of the chord scale on that pad? So it's 1, 3, 5, 2. So if I go into the chord mode, maybe we'll do the same thing. So we'll on the third sequencer, I'm going to change the division so that each pad is worth a quarter note of time. And then I'm going to go into the polyphony. That's not what I want. I don't want the polyphonic mode. I want the chord mode. Yeah, there we go. So now if I press the preview key, yeah, there we go. So now if I press E minor, we can put that onto, oh, it didn't actually work. Well, I guess we'll just try this. And did I program this correctly? I want to turn the arpeggio on. Let me mute the other tracks because I don't hear anything. Let me try to figure out what I didn't sequence correctly. Oh, I do hear it. It's just really quiet. Surprisingly quiet, actually. I don't know why it's so quiet. I may need to run this through Icaria just to give it some extra drive. It's very quiet compared to the other instruments. I'm trying to think if I did something wrong here to make it so quiet. Huh. Oh, I'm on the wrong channel. How strange. Yeah, I don't know why it's so quiet. But, I mean, we can definitely run it through Icaria. Maybe we'll do some additional filtering. But I'll send that in here because Icaria has a built-in overdriving VCA. So you can increase the amplitude of the signal by up to 5 times what it starts as. So we're not going to use it to filter right now. I'm just going to use it to amplify the signal beyond unity. Still really okay. Doing quite what I expected. I'm not sure if this was the best thing for me to try on stream because I've never used it before, or maybe that is more useful to watch. I don't know. But I was the time got reset. Okay, there we go. 1 3 5 2. 1 3 5 2. So I'm just using the same sort of root note, but actually this is wrong because these need to be chords. So the 5 can be minor, and the 2 is actually wrong. Let's see, the 3 should be major, so I need a G sharp major. Am I in the right scale here? Oh, it got set to chromatic for some reason. I guess because I changed the sequencer type. So minor E2. So in minor, the 3rd should be G sharp, right? This is not doing what I would expect. Oh, I guess G major is right. Okay. And then B would be our 5th. That's a minor chord. So we're going to place that here. And then our 2nd would be F sharp. So we're going to place that. Okay, let's see. So our 2nd page is 6-4-2-3. So let's put those chords down on our ARP. Just to do 6-4-2-2-3. I'm actually curious if it gets them right. Yeah, I think it does automatically place the right chord quality. Does it sound out of tune? Sound good to me at all. not sure if I programmed the wrong notes or what. Well, this is always the chance of doing something on the fly, is not knowing how it's going to end up. Let's try changing the arpeggiator to be slower. Chance to play an octave higher. Let's give some reverb to the arp. I just don't feel like all the notes are correct here. Does that sound wrong to you all? That's correct. G major is correct. Maybe it's because the chords on the pad don't actually make sense diatonically to use the same chord quality on every note. I think maybe using Doppler is not going to work here because I would really have to sequence the actual chord quality very carefully. And it doesn't seem to have like an octave mode. I would have to check the manual again to see whether it has just like an octave or a fifth, so I don't have to worry about major minor. Just because it's easier, I think I'm going to try switching to use plates instead. So let's get a trigger from the second sequence of the OXI into the trig of plates. We're going to go into chord mode because I know this has an octave setting, like octave and fifth settings. Let's send that out into our second channel. At all. I didn't tune plates before we started doing this. So maybe I should do that first. Send this into the tuner and see what note we've got here. Oh, I was close. There's our E3. Okay, and we need to take, what did this go into? Ah, yes. This we don't need anymore. We're going to take our second CV signal, our pitch sequence from the second sequencer of the OXI One. Into the volt per octave. And let's start listening to that again. What did I do with my long cable? There we go. Get a nice sound for it's not really going to be a chord so much as it is just an octave. Doesn't sound right to me. But the scale is set correctly. Well, I'm sorry I didn't come up with something that sounds better, but hard to do on the fly. Back to that third track, turn the art back on. Oh, it is on. What happened to our chords? Maybe it's a chord sequence. Let's get our kick drum back in at the least. We'll try moving this to the 7th. sure why it just sounded like, not dissonant in a good way. It sounded like something was like out of scale. Couldn't quite identify what it is though. Let's get a little bit of modulation on the reverb. I might send rings through beads, actually.
Doppler.
That's funny. I still have the frozen buffer from when I was doing my Doppler video. Of just me saying the word Doppler frozen in the buffer. Adding a little bit of granular processing on top of the ring sound. There we go. So I've got a much less abrasive timbre coming from plates now in that chord mode. Maybe a hi-hat sound, just to give it a little more rhythm. So let's go to CV gate, and we're going to set our, do the 7th gate, that'll be track 3, and I'm going to patch that gate. Legio. And let's send its output to our 7th channel on the mixer. Something really minimal. Okay, now we still have a 4th voice that we can add. I feel like there's been just so much setup to even get to this point. I don't know whether you all want to hear more, like another layer, because I did want to get back to what I originally was talking about at the beginning, which was that modulation technique. Just wondering what I would actually modulate here. Okay, on our 4th track, which is ONA going into natural gate. I'm just going to do a straight up like generated scale. So we're going to just randomly generate something. That is too random. Let's do 12%. Much less dense. Also, this should be monophonic. Why is it polyphonic? There we go. Okay. There's just a quick loop. And I should be able to plug... no, I already had that plugged in. This one should definitely follow the harmonization. So, okay, I'm going to change the scale to harmonize sequencer 3. That's our chord sequencer? Yeah. Bring the density down. Relatively few notes, I think. This just doesn't sound like the right notes to me. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Maybe what I can do is just avoid thirds. Is it possible it's just the wrong note? I don't actually hate just having the root note. So I'm just decreasing the trigger probability. So I just programmed every trigger, so all 16th notes. They're just playing the root note, but I've set the scale to harmonize, so it is actually changing the pitch on each measure to match what the chord is playing. And so now I'm just changing the trigger probability. So there's only a 65% chance that any given trigger will actually fire. Okay, so here's what I want to do for this modulation technique. So if we go to the mod lane and I set like the mod wheel, and I can just kind of paint in some modulation values, whatever, doesn't really matter. And then if I hold the N button and do, let's say, like we were saying before, steps, even though the notes are repeating every 16 steps. And then, let's see, this is the fourth sequencer. So if we send the fourth sequencer out of CV6, and this will be mod 1. Then I can plug that on the right case. If I plug that 6th CV output from the OXI into the decay CV of the natural gate, the decay time of that changes. And I think if I go to the settings here for the sequencer. Yeah, so on the second page of the sequencer settings, the second step is reset and it's off, but I can change it to 1 bar. It doesn't do what I would expect. Oh, you can kind of see it happen. You guys can see the vertical column that's moving left to right shows the step of the mod lane that's currently being played, and it's kind of what I described at the beginning, where it plays 14 steps, and then it plays the first 2, and then you can sort of see it snap back to the beginning. That's because the reset is happening every bar. So for 16 steps, we get 14, 2, and then a reset from the beginning of the pattern. And so we can change the modulation by changing the number of steps. So the fewer steps I have at the end, the more steps we'll get at the beginning on that cycle before it resets. We could also start from like the second step, for example, and skip that first step entirely to get like a different sort of sequence of steps each time. Patch up some delay. I'll just use my Erica Sense delay. Let's see if this cable's gonna work. I need to use the ones. Because I think this could sound nice with some delay. Patching the first stereo send from the mixer into the input of my Erica Sense black stereo delay 2. And then the output of it into the return. And then let's send some of that. And I guess we'll need to clock this also. So I'm going to send the clock output of the OXI into the sync input. We'll go fully wet because we're using it as a send effect. Give it a little reverb. Maybe giving some delay to the sort of pseudo arpeggio from Rings also. maybe a little filter modulation on Icaria. I'm not sure this was the best demo of Icaria, Scott, if you're still interested in that. But I did do a deep dive video on it that goes through it in all the features in detail. So that won't be like a, use it in a patch sort of, like a musical patch like this sort of context, but it'll at least give you like a more detailed feature rundown. But let's do this same thing on maybe the second mod lane. Actually, let's do it on the sequencer that is playing that one. So that's the third channel. We'll set our mod lane here. Well, again, I'll paint in some random modulation. And we'll just pick kind of a random range. And I will... I'm not going to reset this one. I'm just going to kind of loop it in the middle. And then I'm going to configure this as the first mod lane on the third sequencer. So if I go into my CV gate settings, the seventh one is going to be my third sequencer, and it's going to be mod 1. We're going to take that signal from the 7th jack into, I guess, filter cutoff. Channels for now to see how well we can hear it. I'm not sure this is actually that audible. Maybe we'll try resonance instead. That's kind of cool. So now I'm using this pattern of modulation that kind of grows every quarter note and then falls down again and then repeats, just these steps right here. You can sort of see when I hold down in it and in, you can see the start column and the end column are marked here. And I've routed that to the resonance on Icaria with the filter cutoff about kind of halfway down on the low pass side. And I'm also using the built-in envelope follower modulation. So if you don't plug anything into the frequency cutoff CV input, it normals the envelope follower. So it's actually listening to the amplitude of the incoming audio and generating an envelope that matches that. And then that is what is used to control the filter cutoff. So it's like an auto wah sort of thing. That's cool. actually pretty pleasant, considering kind of I feel like it was a bit of a struggle to get here. That's not so bad. A nice squelch. A bit of that kind of underwater sound. With the modulation of the resonance and the auto wah and the filter cutoff. Let's bring in some more grains. Quite a significant sound from changing the position on rings. Let's move from the sawtooth on Ona feeding the natural gate to one of the complex waveforms. So this is a sawtooth and a triangle mixed together, I believe. Or it's a triangle and a pulse? I can't remember exactly. You can feed in a modulation signal into the pulse width modulation, which does in fact affect the complex waveforms. Maybe a little delay on that hi-hat. Different divisions of the delay time. It's super audible. I'll just mute all of these for a second. Make sure I really... Let's just turn on one at a time. I think the problem is that the clock rate coming from this jack is actually 24 pulses per quarter note. Let me set the CV clock to 16. Let's try that. Yeah, that's back to our mod lane on... What happened to our mod? I forgot what I mapped this to. Is it the resonance? Oh no, it's the decay time of natural gate. Let's try some different lengths. It's such a subtle thing. I don't know that you necessarily notice the change of modulation steps as I move this around and move the start and end points around. Accent on the first kick drum on each measure. So my sixth gate output. The sixth gate output I will send to the accent on Crater. I don't know if you can even hear the difference. I don't really hear a difference. What about saturation, maybe? Doesn't seem to really do anything. Or maybe I didn't actually select the step. Let me try muting the other thing, see if I can really hear it. I don't really hear a difference. You definitely hear it when it's plugged into saturation, because it's like that's expecting a CV signal and I'm sending it like a 5-volt trigger. Actually, I wonder how that sounds in context. It's not the worst. I'm not sure it's better. Any opinions? Was it better before I did this? Try plugging into the decay. Let's see if that's enough to make it spike up. Maybe instead of plugging it directly into the decay, so I can generate a little envelope. And then I can send that into the decay, maybe make it ring out a little bit more. Let's try these other. You can definitely hear the difference there. Okay. Well, we're coming up on 2 hours, so I think this is probably a good place to stop. I don't know if it's our most successful patch, but I think it's a lot better than where it felt like it was heading in the first hour or so. I felt like it was kind of a struggle to get to this. And as for the sort of approach of using the modulation patterns that reset and have uneven lengths that don't align perfectly with the sequence itself, I think it's an interesting technique. I don't know whether it was particularly obvious in this particular patch. Like, I don't know that you would know that was happening, or that it would, like, when I changed the start and end points of that modulation sequence, it wasn't really noticeable. I think maybe the modulations that I patched it to were too subtle. Certainly not the most unpleasant patch I've made, that's for sure. Anyway, for those that were here live watching, thank you for your attention. I hope this was interesting and hopefully enjoyable. Again, I do these about once a week, usually on Mondays at 1 o'clock. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're interested in seeing new episodes, and I also post videos, not just live streams, so there's real musical performances and a lot of educational videos about hardware music production and especially modular synthesis. If you want to chat about the topic, you can also join the Discord community. There'll be a link in the description of the video, bit.ly/PerceptesDiscord, capital P in Perceptes, capital D in Discord. And if anyone is feeling generous, I would also very much appreciate your support on Patreon, patreon.com/Perceptes. It'll help me continue to do these live streams and to make videos. There's plenty of benefits for signing up for that. High quality audio downloads of the music that I post to the channel, patch notes for the educational videos with very detailed text of all of the stuff that I do in the video, so you can kind of play along at home or dissect what I've done at your own pace. Occasionally I post sample packs for download, usually sampled from modular stuff. Various other benefits. So thanks so much for your time, and I hope you have an enjoyable weekend, and I'll see you next time.